Hi, everyone. Welcome to this new episode of Time for Wastewater. Let's give some time to everyone to settle in the show. Um, I'm your host today, Antoine Walter. I'm very glad to be here together with my good friend Björn. Björn, hi.
Hello. Hi, Antoine.
So I see that we already have people in the chat, so that's good. You found the chat function. We will be collecting the chat. We will be collecting whatever you have to say there. We'll just give 1 minute to everyone to enter the session, and then we are off the races because we have a packed schedule for today. A lot to share with you today. A lot to battle again because you're a contrarian, Björn. You never agree with me. You should.
Yeah, because you came with a topic today, which is, I can't believe that you brought this on the table, really.
Okay, I see that you're already very, very aggressive. No, I feel it from here.
I mean, is it you or me who has a pair of boxing gloves in the bag? Is it you or me?
Okay, fair comment. Regarding the content for today, we have a new element compared to our previous shows. We will be taking the last 10 to 15 minutes of the show, depending how the conversation evolves, to address a news topic, actually, to really take you there and take something which is within the industry. I think, Björn, you already spoiled a bit the topic, so maybe you
A little bit.
You can repeat that spoiler. I let it up to you. What are we talking about?
Yeah, in the last 10 minutes, we would switch a little bit the topic, and I think there was something in the news over the last weeks, which was a list about the 50, I would call it most important or whatever, 50 most important companies in our water industry. And Antoine and I thought we should talk about this in the end. So that are the news. So we will not have just interjump one topic. We will have two for today. But we will leave it to the end until we are ready, until I'm ready with Antoine to convince him.
Okay, awesome. You are already almost French in your arrogance, Björn. I propose you
not as arrogant as you, French, but I try to beat you a little bit.
Let's jump on the topic. So,
please.
To introduce the topic, we thought let's start with a little video. So let's start with 1 minute so that you get a glimpse of what we will be discussing today. And that starts right now. I take you back just after this. There are, as we speak, 692 unicorn companies in the world, private companies with a valuation of over $1 billion. Can you guess how many are active in the water sector? Well, let's be very precise, it's 0. And even if you enlarge the definition to the entire environmental sector, it's still 0. But what makes a unicorn? Probably high technology and a relentless focus on the end user, but above all, groundbreaking innovation. So shall we conclude that the water sector is not innovative? No, it's not that straightforward. There are, in fact, a shuffle of water innovations cooking in every corner of this industry, but only 9% of them will ever really get used. Even the most brilliant and game-changing ones, think of UV disinfection or membrane bioreactors, took 35 to 40 years to establish themselves in the market. Don't be fooled, the water sector is innovative. Yet it is also incredibly conservative. And you know what? That's probably excellent news.
I can't believe what you have said already.
It's excellent news, isn't it?
It's crazy. You are saying it is good that we are conservative.
Exactly.
Crazy. Okay, I think I have to jump directly in here. And we still have some music on air, right? Let me jump in here and let me tell you a small story, Antoine. I still can't believe that you take this serious, but I will tell you a story about from 2012, the IFAD show in 2012, right, in Munich. And I was there and had a nice time. And one day, the authorities from Baden-Württemberg came over from the environmental department, whatever. And I talked to her about an interesting topic, which you may know was about micropollutants, right? At this time in 2012, there was a hot topic. Still today, it is a hot topic. And at this time, I was asking the authority, was a nice lady. Ask her, what are your plans? Are you going to implement this similar concept as this in Switzerland? What about the limits and things like this, right? Because in Switzerland they implemented in 2016 already the limits for the micropollutants, and also the technologies are given, and now they are implementing the technologies into the municipalities. So I asked 2012 the lady, and she said, yeah, well, the authorities, right? Yeah, we have to wait for the federal government of Germany until they gave some limits and some, whatever, to Baden-Württemberg, because it's a country. And at the same time, she said, well, and the federal government is waiting for Brussels, that they are giving from the European perspective the limits. So we are waiting since years. And this week, I was talking to Marie Launay, who is heading of the competence center in Baden-Württemberg, and I asked her, hey, Marie, how's the status? Are we meanwhile? I mean, that was almost 10 years ago. Switzerland is far ahead. Are we going to implement limits for the micropollutants? And she said, no, nothing happened. But she was very optimistic that maybe in 5 or 10 years, we will have some limits where we can implement our technologies we already have. And now you are coming and saying, it is good that we are conservative. We are waiting since years, just the technologies are given, right? So we can start today.
You say
unbelievable.
They say that the technology is given. Let me oppose a bit to that. Actually, the micropollutant removal, which is what you choose as a first weapon, let's take it. There was this Water Framework Directive in Europe in 2000. So basically, that whole story started not like 5 years ago, but 20 years ago. And if you look at what we intended to use at the times to remove the micropollutants, it was advanced oxidation processes. It was granular activated carbon in high quantities. It was ozone with a dose of like 2 grams per grams of DOC. So basically, stupidly high and expensive stuff. And thank God we didn't implement it at the time, because had we done it 20 years ago, or had we even done it 10 years ago, without the return on experience of the various plants that have been built in between, pilot plants, demonstration plants, hadn't we done that, we would have spent millions on something that would, yes, work, but would be far too much and too expensive for what it is. So that is what you gain when you're conservative. It's that you build slowly something that works, and you avoid spending too much.
Slowly, I think, is the key word here, right? For you, slowly. I mean, you already lost the fight for Vetsicon, right? So even there, I have proven that activated carbon works. And all the studies, even you quoted them last time, they have shown it works. So why not saying,
it works.
Let's go, let's implement these.
But Björn,
we have to wait.
If you were to meet the Björn that won Vetsicon, if you were to meet him, would you tell him, do that plant exactly like that? Or would you tell him, let's do it slightly differently, a bit better, a bit optimized?
What do you think? What happened? They built exactly similar plant as we have piloted 10 years ago.
No,
or did you change anything from your Dübendorf plant with the ozone? You adapted a little bit how much ozone you put into the water, but I mean the concept was the same.
It's not slightly adapting. I mean, I was by accident last week on that plant in Dübendorf again. And when you look at how it's working now, they are using 4 times less
activated carbon. They are now using activated carbon.
No. They still install the light and they're still on the right process. But they are using 4 times less ozone than what they conceived in 2012. So it's within 10 years, you divide by 4 how much ozone you need, just because we have a better understanding. So what I'm saying here is basically, you cannot just find a shiny object and just say, no. Do that and hope for the best.
You are mixing apple with burns. I mean, the concept was proof. The same concept you have given to Dübendorf is now implemented. The only thing what you do is you make it a little bit better, but the concept is the same, right? So you invited the car, you gave the car to the owner, but you adapted a little bit the speed. It's like Tesla. Even in the morning, if I wake up, the Tesla is a little bit updated but it's still the same Tesla, right? It's the same car, but it's updated, has some more functions, but the concept of the electricity car is still the same. But maybe I mean, we already, fighted about this, and maybe we should explain a little bit the model of,
Yeah.
what an innovator is, what is an early adapter, and you mentioned the word laggard. What is a laggard? Maybe you can explain this.
What I propose you, Björn, is we are going to make a double kill. I'm going to explain that, and I'm going to use my first Joker card.
Joker card.
So basically, what you're looking at is what's called the Gartner hype curve, is what you see in yellow, and then the adoption curve of new technology. So basically, when I said laggards, it's because somehow, if you are really coming after all the others, you're in this laggards. But on the other end, you have the innovators, the early adopters, the chasm, where many companies die, roughly 91% of the company and the various processes and technologies disappear in this chasm. And then you have the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards. And you can figure out that the technology is adopted once it has crossed the chasm and has reached the early majority and then the late majority. So that is the theory. Let's be very practical about that one. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples. For
Please.
example, you might know this technology. It's UV disinfection. So here I'm drawing on the work done by Paul O'Callaghan in his PhD thesis, which I recommend everyone to have a read. But in case you don't want to read the full thesis, here are some examples. The first is UV disinfection. UV disinfection took 10 years of research, roughly in the 60s, to be brought to a level where it was suitable and ready to be used. 5 additional years of innovators, meaning first pilots out there in the field. Then 5 years for the early adopters. So you start to populate it in various plants around the world. Then 8 to 10 years of early majority. And then 10 to 12 years to late majority. And now you could say that anyone jumping now on UV disinfection would belong to the laggards somehow. So that is a canonic example of innovation in the water industry. It takes about 30 to 35 years to get adopted. So you might scream, I see you coming. Oh, that's incredibly conservative. But let me now show you something. You know, the smartphones. You think Steve Jobs comes on the scene, says, hey, by the way, this is a phone, it's an internet device, and it makes pictures. And hey, I call it smartphone, it's the iPhone, and ta-da, it gets adopted. That's not true. That's not true. Simply look at it. The first smartphone, which can be called a smartphone, was the Simon from IBM. And that was in 1993. And Björn, I'm pretty sure you didn't have a Simon in 1993. Nobody had. But if you are really an innovator, then for you, the smartphone story starts in 1993. Then there's 14 years until the iPhone. So this innovator stage took 14 years, comparable with our UV disinfection story. Same timeline. Then the early adopters. When you get the iPhone, you have this famous interview of Steve Ballmer, at the time the CEO of Microsoft, explaining the world why this is the stupidest idea ever. No one is ever going to buy an iPhone, that the future is the BlackBerry, and that's it. But yeah, so it took 3 years until the iPhone 4, iPhone 5. That was when the early majority started adopting the smartphones in general, not only Apple, but all of them. And then, you're right, it got faster. Inside the early majority, late majority, you see, it goes faster in B2C than it goes in our world of utilities, of water treatment. So it is somehow true that the water industry is slightly slower than the smartphones, but it's not like light years between both. And now let me give you a last example. Because when you are looking at the smartphones, you're looking at a survivor bias, something that worked. But this Segway, see a very nice example of the French police thinking they're cool because they are on a Segway. You told me your neighbor has a Segway. Personally, I know no one that has a Segway. And
he was the only one.
Yeah, it took 10 years to get innovative, 10 years to have the early adopters, and then it died out because that was a stupid idea, because nobody wants a Segway at the end of the day. So you cannot afford in the water industry to invest in a technology that then dies because you're investing in something which is supposed to last 30 years, 50 years, 2 centuries. And if now the thing dies and you're the only one in the world that has that stuff and you need to maintain it and you need it to work, that's simply not working. What do you say to that Joker card?
So that means you are saying there's a possibility that ozone will die for Dübendorf. That is something you are saying. You are not sure. So that means we are still in a phase where it could be potentially that ozone will not work. I mean, I would fully underline that. I'm still activated carbon. But let's say this is just one glimpse I had. I was reading the chat during you was talking. You was giving your, and there was we got from Sheldon Young a very nice comment. He was saying the Simon was a piece of crap. First of all, the second thing he said is the problem is that the Gartner hype curve is frequently eroded to a speed bump in this industry. So that would be a little bit my comment. And the third one would be if you would have read Steve Jobs' biography, he was not the inventor of all the technologies who were part of the iPhone, but he brought all of them together. He had a vision, what he wants to do with this iPhone. Do you have a vision, Antoine?
Not true, Björn. Not true. I recommend you a very good book called The One Device. The One Device tells you the full story of the iPhone, and the One Device tells you that actually Steve Jobs tried to kill the iPhone several times. He tried to kill it because he didn't believe that could fly. He tried to kill it because he was conceiving an iPod phone and he thought that was a much better idea. And he tried to kill it because it was supposed to be too expensive. And he tried to kill it because in terms of marketing, you don't know where to position it. I'm not saying that to blame Steve Jobs. I'm just saying that even someone which is seen as the most visionary in the world had no clue that stuff was going to change the world. So you're making bets, which is fine. And trust me, it's a pain for me to be on that side today, because any other day of my life, I would agree with you. But if you have...
Today not.
No, think of it. What are the three duties of a utility? What are the three duty of a water company? It's to preserve public health. It's to offer reliable service. And it's to be in compliance with regulation. So
okay, very good.
Very good. To break that.
Joker card. Directly Joker card. Stop, Joker card. You know the rules. I can take my...
Joker card.
All right. So my Joker card is coming from Denise. I was talking to Denise because I was talking to the audience. I was asking the audience over the week to give me some stories where you have been in trouble with, or let's say, with your technology to bring this further, bring this to the next level. So, and I was talking to Denise, and she came up with a very, very cool story I want to tell you. But her, the quote I want to give is what she said in the end. This is a hornet's nest of red tape bullshit. So we adopt the policy of it is easier to ask for forgiveness than permission in order to move innovation forward. And the story behind is that she is working, or let's say she gave me an example of a building in Sacramento. Sacramento, is on the West Coast in the US. And this building is part of a net positive water and energy project. So that means they are taking care about everything, about the waste, about the water, about the energy, about everything, right? To be fully autark from the resource, energy, and water. So that means they are treating the black water into compost, and they donate the compost to the farmers, to the local farmers, to support them. They treat the gray water. We all know what gray water means. They use for kind of bank filtration within UV in the end. So far, so good. And they also wanted to produce their own drinking water, their own portable, which is in principle simple, right? We all know the technologies, and they wanted to use the rainwater harvest. Believe it or not, but this is forbidden. And now it comes to the point. The authority said, yeah, you can produce portable from your black water. This is fine. We allow you to do this, but we forbid you that you use rainwater. And the reason, it is totally crazy. And the reason for that is, believe it or not, the rainwater belongs to the local community and not to the building or to the ground where the rainwater comes down. And now it's up to you.
Well, I'm not that surprised. I mean, if you look at the concept of sponge cities, what is it about? It's about to say you are allowed to build a building somewhere only if you make sure that that building is transparent, that it doesn't change anything from the for the aquifer, which means that if you want to take that rainwater and to reuse it, well, nice, but you're taking that water away from the aquifer, so you're no longer transparent regarding to I mean, I'm playing the devil advocate. Clearly,
You're very devil.
it sounds like a stupid rule, but I mean, even a stupid rule has a rational. I mean, I see in the chat people that tell me that I'm cherry picking. It's true, I am cherry picking, but think of that. Regulations have to apply everywhere for everyone, and you have to be on the safe side. Think of it. If nothing happens, everybody's happy. But as soon as a little something happens, you're in trouble. I mean, I'm coming back to my 3 rules. Remember, public health, reliable service, and compliance with regulation. Actually, if you're working in the water sector and you take a risk, what is your reward? At best, it works slightly better. You're not going to get a statue for that. You're not going to get a medal for that. You're not going to get a bonus. You're not going to get a prize for that. At worst, it fails. But if it fails, people are going to come after you. People are going to blame you. You're the one which was wrong. You did it differently. And, no one ever got fired for buying EBM. I mean, that's something that applies in the water industry. Never ever got fired for making activated sludge treatment in wastewater treatment. Love it or not, that's a fact. Taking risk means you have to take responsibility. And that is a strong burden to put on any water professional to say, hey, you will have to make choices and you will be accountable for the choices only if they're bad.
All right, but I think we are very clear that we are able to treat rainwater into potable, and this is way more easier than to use black water. So the technology are not in the early stage. They are really settled. They are saturated. We have all of them available. So in principle, you are cherry picking really, but it is very simple. I mean, the other thing is, if we are talking about regulations, do you know why Huber, you brought the iPhone, you brought Apple. Do you know why Huber in Europe is failed so far? Because of regulations. Because of regulation, the politics are protecting the taxi industry, because we have a Passenger Transport Act in Europe, which means that a taxi can stay everywhere. But Huber is not a taxi and has to go back to the place where it have been before. Does it make sense? Is that sustainable in today's world? I don't think so, Antoine. You're coming with things like this. I think the major issue we are struggling with, to be very clear, to be very blunt, are mostly the regulations by the authorities.
You are bringing an example which is outside the water industry, so I'm not going to debate.
Yeah, iPhone was out of the industry.
Yeah, well. And I apologize for that. I mentioned that I stopped for that, so we keep it within the water treatment. I think Sheldon is right in the comments I was highlighting here. It is a problem that fear is controlling innovation. I get it. But you have to be fair about it. It's hard to know the future. All the analysis that we may be knowing now are really, it's rewriting the story. How do you know that new innovation is the right one? And how do you know that other one is a wrong one?
You know what piloting means?
Absolutely. And piloting is right. Look at the example I was giving. Every water technology gets pretty easily to the pilot. Pilot is something where we are in line with other technologies, with other sectors. So, piloting works exactly at the same pace in the water industry than in other industries.
All right. So that means if it would be, or let's say, if the technology or the project is piloted, you would say then it is proven and the authorities have to give their word. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not that straightforward. I'm going to quote someone else, which was sharing in the chat. He didn't write it now in the chat, but I remember that quote from him. It was Wimo Denart, who wrote an article saying that you don't just take your plant and make it bigger. It's not like if your your child grows bigger, and trust me, his quote was much better than what I'm doing right now. If your child get bigger, you don't get just the same clothes bigger. You have to adapt it. And that is what makes common sense in this industry, is that you have the pilots, then you review the pilots, then you make a demonstration plant, then you review that demonstration plant, and then you bring it to 3 to 5 additional plants, and then you review those, and so far, so on. And love it or not, and trust me, I was in sales. I was pushing everyone, saying, hey, look, micropollutant treatment is working with ozone. Let's put it everywhere. Not to come back to the topic of micropollutant treatment, but just to say, when I was entering any plants in Europe and telling them you could be doing that, they were telling me, yes, we could. But sure.
Okay. I will give you another story. I will give you another story from the audience. I was asking, and it's let's say it's a mix of my personal story and the story from this guy. After I was ready with my study, right, I had 2 job offers, one from the industry and one from the authorities. And I decided myself to go to the industry for several reasons. And then I called the guy from the authority and said, hey, I will not take the opportunity. And he couldn't understand that. He couldn't understand that I take the job offer from the Shark Tank going to the industry. So he was some kind of, anyway, he didn't understand that. I mean, after several years I've been in the industry, I know why he was asking this. And I don't want to give the stereotypes back, but I want to give you one story from our network. And he was working on a project. He was working on a project for manure treatment in Lower Saxony in Germany, right? And this system was based on a kind of anaerobe system with bacteria, and everything was fine. And the authorities said, okay, build us a pilot, a kind of mixed pilot demonstration plan. And they built this, and the farmer was putting some money in, the company was putting some money, and they built a demonstration plan for 250K. So for a lot of money. And they have proven the concept. They have proven the concept. So, and then it needs to build the real plant, but they didn't got the approval by the authorities. And it was just one person, one department who was blocking this to give the permission that they could step further. Even the next department who was saying, yeah, they are right and everything is fine, couldn't do anything. So it was based on, one department, on an opportunity, on an opinion from someone who was in this department and saying, no, I don't want to, I want to take the risk. I don't want to give the permission, right? But everything was proven. Even all the others from this department, from this authorities were saying, yes, you're right. And morale of the story, this person left one day. What do you think? How long it took to get the permission? Days. So that's why I'm asking you, is it right that people in the authorities are the decision maker if it comes to the innovation to speed up the process for application technology in the water industry? Is that right? Is that correct?
It's not right. I mean, I agree with you. It's not right. Good. But Björn, you are a clever guy. You're not discovering that water topics are political, that there is a political aspect. I mean, that's one first element. And, and again, I'm not reopening the debate between ozone and activated carbon because we had that one. What I'm saying is that at the end of the day, believe it or not, but you're right and I'm right. And that's the beauty of... No, come on. That's the beauty of water treatment, is that basically you have problems that can be solved in 5 to 10 different ways. And it's hard for an authority to say, I'm going to go and root for that solution, because it would be unfair to all the other ones. Now, I was going to object to something, and Ravid Levy said it better than me in the chat. So let me just bring it up. There is that element when you're inside the public sector. You have a certain amount of money that you can invest. And when someone has to cut on some cost, usually it's in our sector, because that infrastructure can last another 20 years. So when you make a bad decision in the water sector, the consequences are terrible. Just because, you have a government saying, we are saying that now we replace 0.5% of our network this year, which means you suddenly assume that your network is going to last 200 years. Yeah, it sounds like simple numbers, but if at the beginning you make a bad choice and here I'm going to root for my cause, and you take metal instead of plastics. So if you make a bike just like that one, then you're in a bad shape. I mean, jokes aside, really, every choice you make in this industry is something that's going to take years and decades to correct. And that is the difference with the industry. And there, I might debate, in the industry, sometimes it's a bit wondering when you come to them and you tell them it could be 30% more effective in operating cost. Why don't they do the move? Anyways, the return on investment cycle is much shorter in an industrial plant. But on the utility side of things, you have to live in their shoes.
Okay. I give you another example. I mean, you are talking all the time about micropollutants, even if you don't want to talk about this. But I give you something else. Sludge treatment. 2017, there was a new regulation published in Germany, right? That you can't, bring the sludge anymore onto the field. That was in principle the idea of this regulation. But the point is, it was published 2014, and now it comes. There's a transition period of 12 to 15 years until the authorities and municipalities have to adapt the technologies. The technologies are given. They are proven. The concepts are proven. Everything is ready. Why? And I ask you, because you are the conservative, why does it take 12 to 15 years until the municipality has to implement the technology which is already given on the market, which is already proven, which is already there? Why?
Because that factor of provenness is something which is
it's already given.
No, I mean, let me try to put that question in context, and therefore I'm going to use my next joker card.
Joker card.
So that joker card is actually going to be some questions to you, Björn.
Oh, come on.
To put things in context. Don't get me wrong, I had no clue about the numbers I'm going to share with you, so it's totally fair if you don't know them. I was astonished by those numbers. How many scientific journals do you believe there are in the world? I mean, scientific, peer-reviewed journals out there in the world.
Millions.
28,100.
Oh, less than I thought.
Yeah, but you have to read them. I mean, let's come to that. How many papers are published every year?
Well, I don't know.
But it's 1.8 millions. Why 1.8 millions of papers, of which roughly, depending on
which are not approved? You mean which are not approved by the peer group?
Submitted and published in these reviews. So in total, 1.8 millions of articles, and 15 to 20% of those articles are about engineering and water topics. So if you take it that way, it's 150,000 papers on our industry every year, which makes 410 papers per day. So it makes 17 papers per hour if you don't sleep. And assuming you sleep, it makes you have to read one paper every 2 minutes if you want to stay up to date with this industry. In your opinion, how many of those papers are never read by anyone? No one ever reads that. It gets published in a paper, it gets published in a journal, and it never gets read.
Okay, I will give you my real answer, I think, after the joker card, because it's your joker card. I would say 80%.
It's 50%. It's 50%.
Oh, really?
But how many are never cited, which is kind of a way to see that the paper is maybe not that interesting? It's 90%. So 90% of this paper out there are almost useless. And you never do a paper if you don't have at least some fundamental research work, and most of the time a pilot. So it means that not every pilot is going to go to the next level, and hopefully so. And that's the reason why 91% of the technology die in that chasm. So you have to deal with that. You have to take that risk. But I hear you have an answer to that one, so I'll leave you the floor.
So I think your point was a little bit, there's so much stuff out there, and who really can read that, right? It's a little bit like the scale effect, right? Let's say if you have one person who can read this amount of studies, take 2, take 4, take 8. and then bring them all in a room and make in consumption what they have already read. So this is how it works. The question is, if you leave everything with the authorities, because they are in the end somehow the decision maker, is that the right way? I think that brings back my question. I think your Joker card was interesting to hear, right? But it didn't help you at all, right? I'm still blaming a little bit the authorities, but let's switch
No, wait.
switch to the industry.
Let's keep that one just for a second.
Okay.
Again, I stand my number. 150,000 papers per year are related to the water industry. And I'm just asking to you in the chat, how many do you read? Because if I'm very honest with you, I read one per week on average.
Okay.
I would say some
But
weeks.
90% is useless, right? Even in the water industry.
Yeah,
That's
but
what you say?
look at the average. I said 50% of the papers are never read, but if you look at the scientists in that industry, they read on average 288 papers. So those guys are far, far higher than my humble position. That means this study is still biased by the fact that some people are doing their work and do the bibliography the right way and read some papers. But I would consider myself kind of a curious person. And still, I tell you, if I read 50 a year, that's the end of the world. How about you, Björn? How many do you read every year?
Not many, honestly.
See,
I'm definitely not in detail, right? I need to understand the context. I'm not a scientist in the water industry. I need to understand the context. I don't need to go that deep. That's why for me, yeah, they're interested. What is where's the trend going to, right? What is new on the market? But I don't need how much percentage of carbamazepine is treated. Right? No time for papers. Too many podcasts. Yeah. Too many podcasts from Antoine. Yeah, which I really highlight. But anyway, I mean, I would like. I mean, I was blaming the authorities, right? And I don't want to get blamed by the authorities to me. So I also want to give a little bit the card to the industry. And I want to give you another story. I'm a storyteller today a little bit. So I've been on a conference before Corona times, right? It was, I think, end of 2019. And it was an exciting discussion on stage from someone who was one of the big five from the chemical industry, right? With 4 letters. And he explained that he is going to sign a contract for the next wastewater treatment plant for a facility in Germany, right? And then he was a little bit philosophic, and he came a little bit to tell the story, hey, why do I purchase the entire, system? I have to pay just for the treated wastewater, which is somehow right. I think he wanted to go a little bit into the direction of the BOO model. Anyway, the morale of the story, a couple of weeks later, I received a tender from exactly this company, right? It was not from this facility, but was this company. And this tender was about the wastewater treatment plant. And this tender could have been written 20 years ago, 20 years ago, right? There was nothing new. There was no adaptation to the new technologies, to smart metering, to whatever. There was the same tender 20 years back. So there's also a responsibility by the end user, not only by the authorities, to accept new technologies from the OEMs, from the integrators, from whoever is developing this. That would be my thought a little bit on this. I think they play a role as well, not only the authorities, but even they are sometimes very, very conservative.
I agree with that. But
you agree a lot today.
Yeah, I agree a lot, because I think today we are really on a debate which is about shades of gray. I mean, let me give you another figure here. There is roughly every year $4.3 billion, which is invested in venture capital in the clean tech industry overall. And from that amount of money, which starts to be significant, 5% only goes to water tech. So what you're saying now with the EPC and with the OEMs is basically they're not taking the risk just because there's not that much money available. They have to streamline their investment. And when you streamline your investments, well, you are making different bets than in venture capital. I mean, in venture capital, you burn your money on 20 companies because you know that out of the 20, two are going to make huge benefits and will cover for the 18 others. We are not in an industry which has this luxury. Which companies dealing with water can afford to try something crazy out of this world and fail and everything's fine? I guess it's no one.
There's always an exit strategy, but especially the big companies, they do have these kind of exit strategy. And you are saying just about venture capital. I don't agree on this. They have a lot of money to invest. They want to have a new production. They have to invest into the processed water and to the wastewater stream. So they have the money. And if they are talking about the BOO, that means they have somehow touched this topic, but they don't go the next step and saying, hey, let's test this. That's what I'm saying is a responsibility as well for this kind of industry to use these technologies, to go to the next level, to use what the OEMs are offering. That's the point. It's not about venture capital that they don't have any capital. I think they have enough capital and enough money to do so, right?
I think we could debate for hours.
I have so many stuff here, right?
I'm going to propose you to take a bit of what our audience was saying. And I would start here. I mean, we have Sheldon, which is incredibly active in the chat. And I think that gives us here a different angle. Nobody likes to pilot new things because there's not much incentive. And we were discussing right now about capital, money, and that is the usual incentive. But I think when you look at the water sector, probably the biggest incentive there is when you look at the water people is going to be about purpose. Why do you pilot that? Because you think that's going to move the needle somewhere down the line. But to bring purpose and recognition in that industry, people need to understand what you're doing. And if you're doing something which is very obscure even to the water professionals, then to convey it to the society and to tell them it matters because of this, which ultimately will have an incidence on regulation, needs us to communicate better around why we do things, how we do things, why that matters, and to tell better stories. So, yeah, that's the political element I was alluding to a bit earlier on.
I agree on you, and I think you are a little bit quoting the guy from Washington D.C. We saw the keynote, and he was exactly saying the same. It was an incredible keynote, and he was saying the people all the departments, they have a badge right on their arm. I'm a firefighter. I'm an astronaut. I'm a nurse. I'm whatever. But we have to be proud that we have water workers, that we are working in the water and wastewater industry, especially the guys from the municipality. They have to be proud. They have to be, they have to show this, because this must be valuable for the people to understand what these guys or what we all in our industry are doing, right? You have to explain this, that they don't think, hey, the water's coming from the tap. The water is going to the sink, right? Nothing happened. The rest is magic, right? And I think this is also our challenge, that we have to bring this a little bit into the world. I think one part of this is your podcast, this show, whatever we do on other platforms.
Let's not be saying we are solving the world, but
no. But we are giving our part to this, that we want to transport the message here a little bit, that this is an important stuff, right? That is a little bit the idea.
I think there's also this element of we don't have shiny things. What I was saying, in the very beginning of the video I used to introduce the topic today is that there's no water unicorn. I mean, if there was a water unicorn, we could all somehow root behind that water unicorn, and that would somehow bring some awareness to the public. I mean, if I'm French, I know I don't know if I already told it once, but I'm French.
We all know this.
In France, we have a few unicorns. You look, there's BlaBlaCar, which is car sharing. There is, I think, OVH, which is data centers. And basically, if you would go in the street and talk with people about car sharing or data centers, there are chances in France that people know what it is just because there's BlaBlaCar and OVH. Then, if you don't have a unicorn, which is kind of a flagship for your country or for your region or for something which is close to your heart, it's a bit more difficult to bring it in the light and to break the clutter. I mean, we're in a world of clutter. I was mentioning this. There's millions of papers out there, but add on that social medias, regular news, all the other sectors which are doing a huge work promoting themselves. It's hard for the water industry to go through that clutter and see what Jeremy Daly is saying here is that take a technology, one of the ones he's referring to here is MBRs. MBRs is probably what's closest to a unicorn within the water industry. It was nothing beginning of the 2000s, and nowadays it's a dominant wastewater treatment in countries like China. I'm not saying if it's good or bad here. It's not my topic. I'm just saying that is the closest. And if you go to the street, and I see it every day, I'm discussing with my colleagues which are outside of the water industry, and I tell them MBR, I have to explain what it is. Nobody knows what MBR stands for. So there is still this work of making it understandable and snackable for the public so that we get better chance for it to get adopted.
Right, but before going to a little bit to the comments from our audience, maybe you can have a look. I just want to mention, I mean, you are saying we have no unicorns, which is most probably right, but we have so incredible companies. I just want to highlight two, which are both from Israel. Yeah, one, I mean, both of them you should know. One is Kendo, right? He was also in your podcast. He provides wastewater network insights to cities by analyzing real-time data with IoT sensors. And the other one, which is also incredible, is the Transcend software, right? They're using artificial intelligence to design, to engineer wastewater and wastewater treatment plants. This is so incredible. This is so incredible.
It is incredible. I don't think they're from Israel, though, Transcend. But that's not the
yeah.
I mean,
all I'm saying is there is a movement. There is a movement, and we are in the age that we double up the speed each year to bring new technologies further. But I don't want to explain now the Moore law and the Kurzweil law, because this will a little bit extend the time. But I mean, think about 20 years back, how many technologies every year came up to the market in our industry. I'm talking just about our industry. And how many technologies are coming up every year? This year, last year, it is an increase. We left the linear system. We are in the exponential system. And by the way, the difference is the disruptive, right?
But sorry to come back to your example. I don't get your point about can do, for instance, because can do does awesome stuff and they do it. Storm Harvester does awesome stuff and they do it. Innovize does awesome stuff. Even got bought for $1 billion by Autodesk and they do it. So I don't.
All I'm saying is that that we have many good companies who have cool and smart ideas who are bringing these to the market. Maybe we have no unicorns, but we have so many technology providers. We should respect and we should use their technology, and we shouldn't stop them by the authorities or that the end user doesn't say, I want to have the technology from decades ago, right? We have so much stuff on the market we can use, and we should do this because it will not be less, it will come more. And we should make sure that we don't get disruptive by whatever comes in future.
I don't disagree with you, Björn, but I don't see why that goes against my point. I mean, all you're citing is something happening right now in the water industry, and the conservatism of the industry doesn't seem to come in the way because it's happening.
No. Then you didn't listen to what I said. Maybe you was reading all the time.
I never listened to you,
right? all I'm saying we should make sure that the authorities does not stop our innovation, and also the end user that we push the end user that he is using the technologies we have already on the market.
I think that's
I want to be the I'm not the forerunner. I want to be someone who's speaking for the technologies, for the OEM providers.
Honestly, I think that's not true. I think that authorities may come sometimes in the way. I agree with that. But sometimes they also push it forward. Look at the history of ultrafiltration. Ultrafiltration was nothing, was not ready to be accepted by the market because it was so much more expensive than the standard at the time. And all of a sudden you have that problem of cryptosporidium that comes in the way. And cryptosporidium come, and what do? You say, hey, from now on, you have to remove cryptosporidium. So regulation kicks in and says you have to do it. And once regulation kicks in and says you have to do it, well, how do you do that? With membranes. So you use ultrafiltration, which at the moment you start using it is a nonsense in terms of economics, but still regulation were forward-looking. And the fact that it was imposed put a pressure, added competition in the game, and ultrafiltration became much better. And today, even without regulation, you would be using ultrafiltration because it became market competitive. So
that means you're taking one example against hundreds I brought earlier. Maybe you can rewatch this video on YouTube to listen to my arguments. I gave you some stories not from my personal experience, from the people who are out there, who came with these stories and that saying, hey, the authorities as well the industry are not really adapting our technology progress. But let's switch now a little bit to the comments, and I think we have one topic over, right?
Yeah, just drawing
left.
Drawing on what you just said and also on what Nasrin is writing. She says that the industry, utility, and academia need to work together more closely. You know, that's something which is really, that is the part where I would fully agree with you, and I'm probably even further down the line than you. I don't get why academia is so slow. That's really what I don't get, because I get and I defend and I stand in my point where utility has to be slow because there's a big, I mean, there are big stakes in that game. But what has academia to lose if they say, okay, those technologies are in the early majority, let's bring them in the books and teach them to the students? I mean,
yeah,
I'm a water engineer.
Agree.
You're a water engineer. When I was in school, I learned so many things which were totally outdated. The second I graduated, my diploma has been. I mean, it's almost true, almost to that extent. And that is really the part which I don't understand.
And I would like to take one step further. Why? I mean, you are saying, why is the academic so slow and not really part of that? Why are we not taking the automotive industry, for example, and doing similar thing? Why is it not that our, let's say, bigger players are working together to develop some things up to a certain point and bringing this to the market? This is what Mercedes and BMW are coming together. They are developing something up to a certain point, and then they separate and then go their way, right? And then they bring it to the market. The same, I mean, I have never seen companies in our industry who are working together to develop kind of cloud system for the industry, for the end users, or a kind of smart metering, or kind of this together, right, up to a certain point, and then they separate again, and then they bring it to the market, all with their own, brand, whatever. But I mean, we have to take the idea that we are not alone. So we can work together closely. We can cooperate, even our industry, even if we are normally competitors. But this is the way how we can bring ideas forward.
I think that makes for a good ending to that section, because I fully agree with you. Not that often, though. So let's leverage on that one and say I fully agree with you. That comment from Rick actually makes us a smooth transition into our last section. He's saying that the problem is that we have a market which is much too scattered, which is very true. And I think that this scattered aspect of the market is somehow our last topic. So I propose you to switch to the last section, if that's fine with you, Björn.
I'm good.
What's in the news this month?
Actually, what's in the news is that table. I think if you were on LinkedIn at some point this month, you have seen that table. And that table is the table published by GWI. They regularly do this kind of table. So basically, it is the top 50 companies in the water world, so the top 50 water businesses. And if you know that list, basically, it's the same than before, just as Veolia bought now a share of Suez. Suez fall down from place 2 to place 3 on that list, and Veolia is a bigger number 1. And what connects it to what was just highlighted by Rick in the chat is that actually this even larger company, this big Veolia, which is taking the full market, probably weighs something like 4% of the world water market. So our leader that just bought the number 2 is still a dwarf if you compare it with other sectors, and that probably plays a role. But that's not the reason why we wanted to take that table. And actually, we wanted to take that table just because, when I look at the table, I'm wondering how accurate that is. What do you think, Björn?
Yeah, I think we have to be sure. I mean, what is written here is just by revenue, I think, right? So we are comparing industry companies against municipalities and utilities who are funded by the government, and we are comparing these and saying, hey, this is place 21 because of the ref of this. This is place number 2 because of the ref of this. But this is one thing is industry, and the other thing is utility. And I think this is the first thing I would say, hey, yeah, be careful with list like this. And the other thing is, this is a general thing. If I see reports like this, I mean, I'm always getting reports every day because I have a Google alert, right? And the Google alert is giving me every day something news about water and wastewater, and especially because I'm very interested in ZLD about this topic, and I get offered every day reports about ZLD. The point is, I see just the headline, and I see companies who are the market leaders, for instance, in ZLD, who never built any ZLD plant. So I'm very skeptical about any report, whether it is a copy of someone else, it's just, someone was reading the web page, or whoever the numbers came from. So I think the point here is a little bit that we should make sure that we compare apples with apples, really. And what is the conclusion of a list like this, that we know, okay, what is it?
To me,
how does it help me in my daily work?
No, that's a good question. I mean, it's good to know. I mean, we are not blaming GWI here in particular. We are just saying, I see, for instance, here, that's the reason I was doing it. Company number 24 in the word, KSB. Okay, so KSB is building pumps and valves. But I would guess that those pumps and valves are sold to someone, right? So probably they're sold, let's say, to, let's take an example. Maybe they are sold to Pentair. So Pentair takes those pumps and valves, adds it on their, let's say, ultrafiltration skid, and sell the ultrafiltration skid again. So now in the volume of money that Pentair is getting for the plant, a share of it is KSB. But KSB was already counted because they already sold that stuff. But now Pentair sells it again to, let's say, Suez, because Suez integrates that into a bigger plant. And now you count everything that Pentair was doing double, because it's now inside of Suez, and KSB you count it 3 times. And then Suez sells it to, I don't know, Jacobs. And Jacobs, that's level 4. And then Jacobs sells it to an end user. Let's take maybe...
I have just one hand.
Are we sure that the turnover of each of these company is really cumulative? Aren't we counting every single... Are we just not counting margin on margin on margin? That's one element. And the second element is, I'm going to crack a secret. When I was working for Suez long ago, I was receiving calls from companies, not GWI actually, because they were serious enough not to call a stupid guy like me, but many, of these market companies that do market advertising, that you see, they crack you the beginning of the table, and if you want the rest, you buy it for only 5,000. And all these numbers just... If it was for me, don't buy it. Just don't buy it, because when I was getting those calls, I was faking everything. Every single project I was having in my pipeline, I was considering as one and at twice the price and margin than what I would expect to have realistically. So just to say, and that's maybe something we might be discussing in a future or a sequel episode, I would take that with at least a pinch of salt, and maybe further down the line really question how that is. I mean, how does that make any kind of sense? And
can I ask you a question? Have you ever seen a report where the numbers are decreasing?
Oh, true.
All reports I'm getting, you have an average growth rate of, I don't know, 5 to 12%. I never saw a decrease, never ever. All the reports I was offered to. I mean, we must be in a so cool and great industry. Whatever technology you have, whatever application, whether it's a reverse osmosis technology or it's a desal application, all industries are just going up just this way, just up. So cool, isn't it?
So that was our little closing thought, because we saw that and we thought, it is too funny to just avoid the topic. So here's our last closing section about that part. And we thought it's also cool to finish with something where we agree, Björn and me. So I think we closed that hour, and I tried, to be not too French and to keep it within the schedule. So I think that's it for today. Björn, a closing thought on your end?
I think it was a great discussion, and I think we also had a lot of interaction. I think a lot of people came to LinkedIn Live, so we first time used LinkedIn Live. So I'm very happy for that. LinkedIn was allowing us now after the post, we did that we could use this. So
I have to thank you, Björn. So here is my official thank you. It's funny. You were asking for LinkedIn Live. I got it.
Yeah.
So can you please ask for $1 million?
Yeah, I will do. Don't worry. No, to the audience, thanks a lot. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to us. Hopefully you could take 1 or 2 glimpses just for your work. Just connect with us on LinkedIn. You know where to reach out, and leave us a comment, leave us a message. And if you think you have a cool topic for the next show, if you really want to be in our show, we're always looking for cool ideas, cool guests. Thanks, Antoine, for hosting this episode.
And see you all pretty soon, because you're going to come with so much good ideas that we will take the discussion from there. Have a nice rest of the day.
Enjoy.
That was it for another episode of Time for Wastewater. So, what would you like us to debate next? Which water topic shall we put under the spot? Did you like it or did you hate it? And last but not least, is there a matter where you feel your expertise might be a fantastic fit on this stage? Come tell us on LinkedIn. We welcome and praise any feedback. So don't be shy, and see you next month.